Welcome back to One-on-One with Mr. U. Of course, I am your host, Mr. U. Before we get to our guest for today, if you're watching and listening for the very first time, thanks for making us part of your week. We're live on LinkedIn, Facebook, as well as YouTube. And of course, we'll be up on an audio platform probably within the month based on scheduling. But in the house with us today, cultural catalyst, Jaclyn Orent with us today. Jaclyn, it's great to have you here finally. How you doing today?
Yeah. Bit of a whirlwind getting here with you right now, but I'm happy.
Yeah, it is. I know it's some tech stuff, but we're going to figure it out. But so glad you're here, and we're going to put some time in to kind of hear from you. So let's do that straight away. So one of the things you were talking about was being a cultural catalyst. I want to get into that, but first, give me a snippet of your background, where you're from, how'd you get from there to here, and then we'll get into your work. Go ahead.
Cool. So my name is Jaclyn Orent. I am the CEO, co-founder, and systems architect of the Cultural Catalyst Network. This body of work has been the manifestation of about a decade's worth of transformation, both personally and professionally, and ultimately led me to apply to grad school with a very specific thesis in connecting consciousness to systemic change. And in doing so, I got to be directed to two different researchers, one by the name of Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who's an organizational psychologist and has written famous books like Who Not How, The Gain is the Gap, and 10x is easier than 2x, and most recently, The Science of Scaling. Yeah. And I also got to meet Dr. Richard Boyatzis, who spent 60 years studying change. How does change actually happen from the individual to the organization to the community level? And I got to realize that the research that I was trying to prove already existed. So I actually ended up letting go of grad school and founding the Cultural Catalyst Network with my co-founder and life partner, Tracy. So here we are after a decade of learning how to transform myself, transform leaders, turning into measurable results. And one of the things that I know I wanted to talk to you about that was particularly interesting to your audience was, how do you create exponential results? How do you create things and outcomes for people that are way beyond what the imagination could ever imagine? And that's part of actually how we create a new culture and a new society, is from dreaming and imagining into things that haven't been created yet, and actually having the courage and the audacity to go for it.
I love it. I love it. So when you and I talked, and it was a very, very interesting conversation. When you and I talked, you mentioned, or you asked me, was I a cultural catalyst? Which I thought was like, I've been asked a lot of questions. I've been interviewing for a bit now, been in coaching and mentoring spaces, all kinds of circles. That question has never been asked to me in my very, very long life of living. So I'm like, wow. So explain to us, for our listeners and viewers, Jaclyn, what a cultural catalyst is and how it's significant in 2026. Go ahead.
Well, so first of all, I wanted to talk, and let's take a step back to like, why are we having this conversation right now? Okay. I just watched Die Over CEO last night, and he brought on a Pulitzer Prize winning historian that was talking about the rise and falls of empires. And I know I talked to you about this initially. Same work as Ray Dalio, but a different lens of why is there so much change happening right now? Why is this thing completely crazy? Everyone's fighting. The world seems like it's ending. The value of the dollar is complete crap. The house that I used to be able to buy in the 90s is now I have to be a millionaire to be able to buy that house. Things are just kind of off kilter. And when we actually take a step back from a historical lens, we get to see that what's happening now has actually happened before. And when we look at it from a macro lens, we actually get to see, wait, I don't actually have to react to these circumstances of how the culture is responding. I actually get to be part of the solution and to get to create the new culture that I want to see here, because the systems that are currently in place, like what was put in place after World War II, was the consensus of what happened and the reorganization of the world powers at that time. So we have a lot of legacy architecture in place at a government level for sure, right? Like, why are we, like the paper that we still have to do is so outdated. That's just a physical example of an outdated system on a government lens. And there are people like yourself who are speaking words of empowerment, new ways of being, new ways of doing things that add to life instead of take away from life. And being a cultural catalyst is some level of leading from power, which is life-giving, and not leading from force, which is life-taking, and making sure that whatever we are doing with our life is actually whole-serving and not just self-serving. And that's part of what we're needing to remember as a species right now is our physical environment is going havoc, right? Like tornadoes and huge wildfires and droughts. Like these are things that have happened that have literally are an indicator of the change that's happening in our history right now. And we can all, I think, agree that something needs to change. And so cultural catalyst is that you are someone who believes that our societal culture needs to change and you want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
I love it. I love it. It's just one problem. And I think you might have to pause for a second to think about it because from our conversation, there were a lot of things you mentioned that I know are touchy points for you, things you want to see, things you want to break through. But what's one problem you would personally or professionally love to solve if you can pinpoint just one?
Yeah. So, I mean, on a personal level, one of the gifts that I embody is leadership from a place of service. So leadership from a place of altruism. And altruism, are you familiar with that term?
I am, of course.
So what does that mean to you?
Altruism?
Yeah.
Well, from the standpoint that I've seen it, it's essentially generosity. Mm-hmm. It's a level of giving to others of yourself, of what you have, and just to see someone else who may not have it as good, have it a little bit better. So totally. That's my view.
Yes, so you're right. Altruism is another word for generosity. And I often think of the metaphor of like, when we have our cup overfloweth, then we can giveth, right? There's that statement, of course. Okay. And at the same time that we can actually learn to give from an overfloweth place without necessarily having our definition of what enough means. And so part of what I'm here to show is that we can actually lead from this place of giving. Because right now, the way that we build our businesses, the way that we provide value often comes from this place of unconscious taking of I don't have enough. Okay. Yeah, I don't have enough. I need more for myself. And we see that with millionaires and billionaires that they keep needing to get more and more and more, right? That is not where we create a new culture from. We need to create a culture of we have enough, I have enough, I am enough, and therefore you can have enough too. And so that's part of what I'm here to embody is leadership from a place of altruism, of leadership from a place of service.
So when you say unconscious taking, help me out with a little bit, but I don't want to lose the listeners and viewers that are joining us. So when you say unconscious taking, what do you mean by that?
So, I mean, I'll use myself as a specific example. I am 100% Ashkenazi Jewish by blood. And I've gotten to deal with some of the genetic baggage that's come with being a Jew. And a lot of that has to do with being in slavery multiple times and being taken from, and we study this stuff and we like call it ceremonies and we celebrate like getting out of slavery in Egypt. But in reality, my people have had a history of being taken from and enslaved. And so for me, I was trying to get things from people in a way that was actually taking from them instead of actually giving to them. And it wasn't my fault by any means. It was just leftover residue from being taken advantage of in prior generations that has literally been passed down through my genetics. And so that's a specific example that I actually had to go back into that, ironically, around the time of Passover, and actually go free myself like I freed my people. What I've noticed and what I've been taught from my mentors is my job is to actually just give freely. Giving is just life flowing through me. What it is in my audacity is to give freely as it feels good, and to not expect to get anything back, to not know where it's going to come from or when it's going to come, but it's my job just to give. And that required a releasing of a lot of, ultimately a lack of faith in God that I think I was passed down from my people due to the poor circumstances and the bad situations that we've gotten ourselves in.
Wow. I love this. I don't know if you're going to remember this, but in our onboarding process, I asked you a question.
Yep.
I wonder if you remember the answer to it. It's been a little while, but the question was, if you given one chance to ask your host a question, which I never ever allow on this show because I never know what I'm going to be asked.
Totally.
I said, what would you ask? Do you remember what your answer was?
I mean, I remember the questions that you asked me. You were like, first of all, be straight with me. And I was like, I don't know how to be anything else but straight, but okay.
Well, you got that part straight.
Yeah.
You got that part straight.
And then the second thing you were like, if there was something that you don't usually tell someone, will you tell me? I think is what it was. or some level of like, how transparent will you be with me?
I'm going to tell you. I'm going to do. We're breaking all protocols on this show today for some reason. I think it's a Jaclyn thing, but I'm going to tell you what you said to me, and then we can work through it.
Cool.
You said, "What do you think is missing in the way we currently support leaders at higher levels, and what have you personally needed that hasn't always been available?" Totally. That was your answer for me.
Got it.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question,
let's back up for a second. What was your takeaway from that? What did that mean to you?
For me,
yeah,
because I'm in a place where I am leading leaders, and I've been in this space. Maybe we're going into decade 3 right now of that, and I feel as though a lot of people who I see in leadership circles now, business circles now, a lot of them didn't really have leadership. They felt compelled to be the change they want to see, but they really didn't have all of the requisite tools to kind of piece it together. I'm not saying duct tape and bubble gum, but they're piecing it together, trying to just figure it out along the way. But they just realized, like yourself, that there was a mission embedded inside of you, and you wanted to make this thing happen, and you didn't want to wait and try to figure things out or wait for all the right pieces to come into place.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I felt about that response.
So when I first met you the first time, your takeaway was the finding of the inner meaning and purpose within to be able to figure out whatever it is that needed to happen to be able to do here what you're here to do.
Honestly, Jaclyn, I think where I was going with that was when people, we can see this in leadership all over the place. I just happen to just see it in spiritual circles and business circles that I run in. People feel as though, you know what, I have the capacity to lead, but they haven't been led. I think that's challenging to be a leader and haven't been led. I mean, what are you going to pull? What are you going to pull from?
Yeah.
There's a sense, and this is a general statement. I'm going to let you get back to the rest of our interview, but there's a general thought to me that people feel as though, you know what, I can bypass the growth process, the servant leader process, the schooling, I don't mean college now. I'm not talking about that.
Yeah.
But the schooling, the training, the kind of emotional growth, that emotional intelligence that's required to really be an effective leader. That part is missing. People try to skip it and say, you know what? I got a website. I read this book, this one book. I got this skill set. I can go and lead. It's like, wow. There's a growth. Because if you're not a leader that has grown, how are you going to grow leaders? It's going to be 100%. A hot mess. So, does that mean?
Yeah, I think about this a lot because I have a lot of conversations with leaders and even a neuroscientist yesterday, and what it takes to be able to lead through adversity. And what it really comes down to is the ability to have self-leadership. Are you the one who's able to control your consciousness? Who is the one who's leading your life? Is it you consciously doing it? Or are you reacting? Are you doing it based off preconditioned patterns and beliefs? And I know when I hear what you just said, it actually brought me to a story that's quite interesting. I know I told you I fasted on water for 36 days a decade ago, and I went through, and I asked for help afterwards, which led me to go through an immersive wilderness therapy process in which I also thought I was a leader right out the bat. And then I got humbled by the therapist who was like, you actually need to learn to lead by example. And so for the next many months while I was in that circumstance, what I did was I led by example by doing the thing until I actually had the opportunity to get voted into leadership. Okay. And then I got voted into leadership. And then I actually had the authority to lead in that environment. And that was the first time that I realized that leadership really starts with the self and how you show up and how you model what you're doing. And ultimately, that's like my main principle of leadership. It's you have to lead by example. And when you look at the levels of leadership, which is John Maxwell's work, oftentimes people are given a position of leadership just as a position, but people don't necessarily follow you yet. And that's just step one. Step two of leadership is people will follow you because of your relationships. Step three of leadership is they'll follow you because of your results. Step four, people will follow you because of your development of them. And step 5 is people will follow you because of who you are and who you've become specifically. All of this requires you to develop your character. And what I think you're speaking to, I think is really important, is the unavoidable task of really being able to develop your character, which I call boot camp. Like that's the step 1 of leadership, is like, can you develop a rock solid character? So no matter what it is that life brings you, that you can still be in integrity with yourself and be able to act and move consciously. So you have to understand you're going to make mistakes, which is part of leadership. And part of leadership is also being able to listen to the feedback that's being given to you, whether you like it or not, and be able to accept the things that you don't want to accept, and be able to accept the things that you don't want to change, and to be able to accept reality, whatever it is that life gives you, so that you can find the sense of inner peace. That's the ultimate flex. And that's the conversation I had with a neuroscientist yesterday, was, can you find inner peace regardless of your external circumstances? Because if you can't, you're not going to be able to lead with clarity. So that's step 1, is to be able to develop that inner sense of self-mastery that can only be done through repetition itself.
That makes sense. In your leadership experience, I'm not quite sure how many years we're talking about, but in your leadership experience, what's one of the biggest things that you figured out about yourself that was like, wow, I need to work on this. This is not well. This is not good. What was that thing?
I mean, there's been so many things. The person that you're talking to didn't start this way. So I often describe there's a person before the fast and after the fast. And even recently, my father was like, who's this person on the phone? She just is a different person, right? And that's because I've been actively changing myself. And that's the biggest thing. It's having the willingness to be able to accept the things I don't want to accept, and to love myself no matter what it is that I find. And the biggest thing that I know in the last couple of years, which is really big for people who are like scientists and like analytical oriented, is the limitations of the human mind.
Okay.
Arrogance. And what is arrogance?
Yeah.
Arrogance is you thinking you know, okay? Or in this mindset of I know best, right? I am the best. We know someone who does that a lot. I am the best. I am the greatest, right? And what happens on an actual mindfulness level is you literally close your mind, okay? Closed-mindedness, growth mindset. And it's actually, I saw this in a medicine ceremony I sat in many years ago. I was thinking that I knew what I was doing, and then I got humbled by the medicine. And what happened was it opened my mind to start realizing, oh my God, I don't know. And I went through a whole period of shame of realizing I didn't know, even though that I thought I knew. And that was my first crack in my open-mindedness. And so now I've actually learned to, appreciate feedback, even when it's hard, even when it's not what I want to hear. But to be able to practice the skill of open-mindedness allows for me to lead with humility, and knowing that the biggest challenge of the human mind is that it has blind spots. So it's actually not your fault. It's just how the mind and brain is structured. And so if you can accept that your mind has blind spots as being a human being, that puts you in a position to be able to open your mind and be able to see the things that you need to see about yourself.
Yeah, I like that. Another question about leadership I want to ask you, because I know this is a challenge for a lot of people. How have you, just some actionable tips and strategies to our listeners about how to listen to other people who may have some opposing views, or who may feel differently about a specific thing? Because I really feel as though we don't do very well at that.
Totally.
We're fiery about our opinions. We just know, maybe from a personal place, we're like, this is the hill we're going to die on, and we're not moving. But we got to the place where we don't even listen anymore. And social media doesn't help with that.
Totally.
We just talk at people. Like right now in the comment section, there's so many, there's anti-Israelite comments in the comment. I'm not even gonna put them on the screen because it's not even worth putting them on the screen. But the point is that people are going back and forth with each other, and there's no discourse. There's just yammering and clapping back at each other. How do you personally advise people to learn to listen to each other? How have you been doing it? How have you been evolving in that space?
Yeah, well, you first need to be able to start listening to yourself. Are you able to be with what is you are experiencing in your body and how it feels? Are you able to feel the discomfort of your fast heart rate when someone disagrees with you? Are you able to stay in your body and actually hear another person? Or are you so focused on what it is that they are going to respond with that you're not even able to hear them? And I want to bring a lot of acceptance to the challenge of being human, because this is actually neurological and physiological what happens, which is we go into fight or flight. And the neural network that turns on is called the task mode network, which literally means that you're focused on solving problems. So as long as you're in stress, and if you're not even aware that you're in stress, you're not going to be able to hear other people. And so when someone says mindfulness is the base level skill for conscious leadership, what they're meaning is that mindfulness is the first skill to be able to even be present with what is happening with yourself in this moment in time. Like, can you feel your feet? Because if you can't feel your feet, you're not going to be able to hear another person. Or how it feels to stand in, like, there's tingling at the bottom of my feet right now as I'm watching you think. And me also wondering, what is he thinking right now?
We got time for a couple more questions. I'm going to try to see if I can get them into the time we have left. One of the things that I always try to guard against when people come on our show, sometimes there's people who come and it's their agenda. They don't care about me as a host or what we're doing or what we're trying to accomplish, who our audience is. Honestly, sometimes I really feel like they don't really care. But I do, so I kind of enforce what I believe needs to happen because I'm captain of this ship.
Yep.
But when people come on, it feels like sometimes I think our listeners and viewers want to know, you know what, how have you changed? How have you grown? Because they give out advice and they're giving out actionable tips and strategies, which I asked for, but we really get to see the transparent side of how they've grown, how they've evolved as a person when they made mistakes, when they fell down and they got back up, dust themselves off and became better in certain areas. What would you say, Jaclyn, is one area where you are right now the least aligned with your values, but you want to change that?
Let's see. I mean, the least aligned with my values would have to be me wanting to learn more about you at the moment, actually, is noticing your physical and mental expressions with your response to me, and a curiosity with wanting this to not be a one-sided conversation, and also wanting to model what it is that I'm talking about, which is the fact that I have a curiosity to know what it is that you are feeling and thinking in regards to ultimately me being myself, which has been the manifestation of all the work that I've done.
Well, you're doing that. You've been transparent and open, and that's all I can really ask for from a guest. So I definitely appreciate that. Because for me, you know, if you can do that, I believe that's what resonates with viewers and listeners. So definitely appreciate that stuff there. Final question for you. I want you to kind of think about this. And after you're done here, I'd love for you to let people know where they can find your work, where they can find you perhaps for support of some of the things you're trying to do in the world.
Yep.
You can do that after you answer this question for me. At the end of the day, before this interview is over, what do you want people to know about you as a person? You not just what you're doing your work wise, because you're going to answer that in the second part of that, but what do you want people to know about you as a person as they watch this episode?
So the biggest thing that I want people to know about me is what is it that they experienced during listening to me that changed things. So what I'm always curious about and where I'm at in my journey is realizing that me just being here is actually enough to create change for people. And so for people who are listening to this and having some insights or some curiosities or some question marks or just straight up disagreements or judgments, right? Like, this is all really valuable information. And I know that that's part of my job. Part of my job is to actually start catalyzing that change. And so whatever it is that comes up for you in listening to this, I want you to take at least one action off of it. Just do something with one of the insights or one of the reflections that you got from hearing from me, because I know that I'm not exactly someone that is within the box at all. Like, I've spent the last decade getting outside the box and becoming more of who I am. And the biggest gift that I can be for people is just to be myself.
I love it. Let folks know where they can find your work, Jaclyn, where they can find you.
Great. So the best place that you can find my work and learn more about me and what we are working on with the Cultural Catalyst Network is culturalcatalyst.network.com. It is not the one based in the EU. It's the one based in Colorado. We're in the process of branding that right now. But what we are is a peer network for individuals who identify as cultural catalysts. And we come together to resource share, to problem solve, to have belonging, and to actually change the world together. So if you identify as a cultural catalyst and you want to get involved with being part of the solution instead of the problem, we've got a place for you.
Thank you so much for being a part of our show, Jaclyn. You are fantastic. Thank you for enlightening us on what a cultural catalyst is. There's a lot of work to be done, and you're doing a lot of it out there. So thank you again for being on our show and being so transparent and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. For those of you who are watching and listening for the very first time, thanks for making us part of your week. Jaclyn told you where you would be able to find her and her work. And of course, we'll also be in the show notes as well. But thanks again. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, and you may say Instagram. It's not Instagram. YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thanks again for being a part of our show. Thanks for watching One-on-One with Mr. U. That's Jaclyn. I'm Mr. U. We're out of here. Have a fantastic day. Thanks again for watching and listening.